Edna Wilson here, your hometown realtor, as hometown as apple pie, talking about our education corner. Today, we're actually learning about the 3 buckets it takes to purchase a house. Most of my buyers are always coming to me and saying, Edna, what kind of money do we need to buy a house? That's always the first question, correct? Well, there's actually 3 different buckets, and I did not realize this before I started selling real estate, so I want to share it with you because it kind of be a little confusing. Our first bucket is what I call our pre-purchase bucket. So in that bucket is things like inspections. It is also things like your appraisal. And then also we have your escrow money. So those are some fancy things. So let's talk about that real fast. Your inspection is just to look through the house, make sure it's fine, it's good, it's okay, it's up to code. That usually runs between $400 and $450, typically what you spend. That's out-of-pocket money before we even get started. Then we also have your appraisal, which happens a little bit later in the process, but that too is about $400, $450. Then lastly, we actually have our escrow deposit. You might have heard this called good faith money. That just says, hey, I got skin in the game. And usually, typically, that's about $1,000. Sometimes some sellers ask for more, but typically we see $1,000. Now, this $1,000 we're putting in here, actually at closing table, goes to one of these other buckets. It doesn't stay in this bucket, but it's just money we put down up front. So you do have to have that cash up front. So overall, really we're looking at probably about $800 that this bucket cost. Then we're looking at our down payment money. Now, if you go FHA, FHA requires that the buyer puts down 3.5%, which most of my buyers go FHA. Now, some will go VA, which is a fabulous program for our veterans. And VA basically is for anybody who's served in our military and you don't have to put anything down. So this could be 0%. Now, let's say you just won the lottery and you have an extra $50,000 put down. That would cover this as well. That would be nice. Not that that's ever happened to me. But at any rate, that money really probably does need to come from you. But there are some other ways we can cover that money, that 3.5%. One being our bond programs that we have right now. Titusville has some great bond money that's out there still. That could be wiped out by the bond money. So this actually could probably go away if you're a first-time home buyer, which means you haven't owned a house in 3 years. Then lastly, we have our closing costs. And this is where most people, including myself, did not understand what is closing costs. I thought down payment was the same as closing costs, but it's not. It's actually 2 different things. On the closing costs, you could average this. This is going to be about 4% of the total purchase price of the home. So that could be anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 depending on how much your home is being purchased at. But let's talk about that a little bit. So what is closing costs? Because I thought that was part of the down payment. It's a little different. So what this is things like what they call doc stamps. Doc stamps are a fancy way to say you're paying taxes on the house. It's kind of like when you purchase a candy bar, you have to pay that 7%. Kind of the same thing, but it's just a little fancier. Then we also have real estate taxes and homeowners insurance and title insurance and blah, 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 blah. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But it usually comes out to about 4%. Now here's the trick. Sometimes, if we negotiate it right, we can get the seller to pay part of that 4%, which is nice, or maybe even the full 4%. So that's something we negotiate around. So don't let that scare you too much, because usually we can figure that out. But those are the 3 buckets you have to consider. Now granted, if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you haven't owned a home in 3 years, you can actually do just the pre-purchase money. We'll get bond money for this, and we'll get, or have maybe a family member help us with that, and we get the closing costs maybe paid for by the seller. So those are your 3 buckets you need to know. And by the way, you'd be shocked at how many people will help a new buyer buy a house. I'm sure you have questions, so please don't hesitate to call me. My number is listed below. And give me a shout, text, email, and we can talk a little bit more about it. Have a great day.